Hello and welcome to the official podcast of Palate Exposure, featuring Ilona Thompson, a podcast for those seeking the ultimate in wine, food, and travel. Each week she interviews winemakers, chefs, celebrities, and a variety of guests that shape the way we enjoy life.
Hello, Palate Exposure, Ilona Thompson, on a gorgeous day on Spring Mountain at Vineyard 7 and 8, and I'm here with Wes Steffens, who is an associate winemaker and a director at a brand called Vineyard 7 and 8. He's also a founder of a brand called Correlation. I'm here to ask him a million questions. I'm going to start with question number one, and that is, where were you born?
Not in California.
Ah.
I was born in Ridgewood, New Jersey.
Jersey.
Jersey. I don't have the accent.
No, you don't, which is why I have a really shocked look on my face right now. You can't see it, but I promise you. So you grew up in?
I was born in Ridgewood, New Jersey, raised in Princeton, New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
I went to school in upstate New York and moved out to California in 2001. So I've been out here for about 18 years now.
Okay.
Maybe that's why the accent's gone.
Why did you move to California?
Why not? Why not?
He told me, you guys.
No,
Really?
I moved to California actually originally for food. After graduating undergrad, I studied an economics degree at Hobart College in upstate New York. And I then, upon graduating, I went to the Culinary Institute of America because I decided to follow a love of food and wine. And as you can hear, podcasters pouring a little bit of wine because it's too nice to not have some wine in our glass right now.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers. You'll hear a clink, my second favorite sound. Oh my.
So I went to culinary school and 2 years at the Culinary Institute of America, following a love of food and wine, and that's what originally brought me to the Napa Valley. I did an internship at culinary school, or what's called an externship at culinary school, out here at the French Laundry. And upon graduating from school, I had an opportunity to come back to Napa and return to the French Laundry, where I spent probably a total of about 2 years with Thomas Keller and the team there, and that's sort of what helped me ground my roots here.
Because most people just wind up, working with Thomas Keller. We're going to need to know a lot more.
Well, I mean, it started, and it sort of actually ties into where wine comes into this too. So in 1999, well, I guess even further back, my family, my father, had always been a lover and a collector of wines. And being raised in New Jersey, close proximity to Manhattan, had a fair amount of introduction to food and wine and awesome culture. And so, even though I was a typical, youngster that thought, booze and wine and alcohol was not very exciting, as the older I got, the more I was around it, the more interested it was just innately a part of my life. And my father at one point was looking to sort of procure some wines for a charity event that he was doing in Manhattan for children, raising money for children with AIDS. And he was looking for a specific wine that he couldn't find anywhere, and actually found a listing in the back of Wine Spectator for this guy who had a business out in San Francisco, sort of a wine headhunter, if you will. And this guy was able to find this wine for him, and they developed a relationship over the years. And my dad would buy wine for not only his personal collection but for other events that he was doing. And over the time of their relationship, there was sort of that puppy conversation that had one day, and my dad said, "Oh, that would be fun to make a wine." And I think this guy probably maybe took him a little, maybe too seriously, and called him up and said, "Hey, Lonnie, there's a property for sale up on the top of Spring Mountain, and you should come take a look at it." And he thought the guy was a little crazy. He said, "No, I'm not sure I was actually serious, but that sounds neat and all, but I can't come out. I'm too busy." My father had his primary business in finance, that kept him from being able to come out. And he says, no, you got to come out and take a look at this. If you don't, it's going to go on the market and it's not going to be for sale anymore, and somebody else is going to get it. He said, well, again, I didn't necessarily say I was in the market for a wine or a vineyard, but why don't you just send me some information and I'll take a look. So the guy sent him some information, some stats on the property, some pictures, what was planted here, and what the sort of the specs of the opportunity were. And I guess he decided to take a leap of faith and thought maybe this would be an interesting investment, and put a bid in, but thinking more so that, hey, this would be a fun cocktail party story to tell. Hey, guess what, gang? I once bid on a vineyard in Napa Valley. But little did he know, at the end of the week, he'd get the phone call to say, congratulations, you're the proud new owner.
Wow.
So that was in 1999. So I had just started culinary school at that time, and before, it's sort of between undergrad at Hobart and going to the CIA, I had said to my mom, I've never been to California. I'd love to go to California. I'm getting ready to obviously go to culinary school. Maybe I could see if there's a way I could go just visit the French Laundry. I wasn't going to say I need a job there. So I wrote Thomas Keller a letter and just said, hey, I'm a young, soon-to-be culinary student and interested in, I don't know if you even do this thing, but maybe I could come by, at least shake your hand and see the restaurant. And we also thought it'd be a fun opportunity to come out and see the vineyard that our family just bought. And so sort of double purpose trip. So came out, or a couple weeks later, I got a letter back from Thomas saying, Wesley, congratulations on going to CIA. Give my assistant a call. She'd be happy to set up a visit. So came out here, we got settled and went to meet, it was early morning, probably mid-morning, 10 o'clock or so, and met him in the garden, and my mom sat out front, and sort of he walked me around the property for about an hour. We sat down and had a conversation in the dining room, and then he walked me into the kitchen, introduced me to his sous chef, Eric Ziebold, who was also a graduate from the Culinary Institute of America, and he said, hey, Eric, I want to introduce you to Wes. He's going to be doing his externship with us next summer. I was shocked. I mean, again, I had no intention of showing up. I didn't even at that point know what an externship was. But now I had one. So went to culinary school and had the externship and returned. And
You must have made quite an impression.
I don't know, maybe just excited, and that was the right time, right place. He needed somebody.
Yeah?
I don't know.
Timing is everything, huh?
Timing is everything. I mean, I think that being true to yourself and true to your passion of what you're trying to do and has been important to me in my whole life. About the sort of how you develop a relationship has been important to me. And it was an interesting way to sort of kickstart my life here in the Napa Valley. I think in the first 2 years, it was an incredible, sometimes painful, but in a good way experience there. There's no question that what I learned at the French Laundry absolutely goes into everything, all the decisions I make, in the winery on a daily basis. The two industries are they're transferable. I mean, to me, there are a lot of similarities between the two. I mean, when people ask me, hey, do you miss cooking? Well, I said, no, I don't, because I think to a certain extent what I'm doing now is a version of it.
Yeah. And hospitality is at the core of it all,
Absolutely.
isn't it? I have a sidebar question. Do you remember the bottle of wine that your dad was trying to procure for that charity event? Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I think it was an 82 Margaux.
Huh. Yeah, that's not easy to find, even back in the 90s.
Well, especially when you needed more than a couple cases of it.
Ah, interesting. So, what was your dad's cellar like?
Was and still is probably primarily focused on great first and second growth Bordeaux's, great Burgundies. I'd say probably not the largest selection of California wines, although I've certainly, since I've been here in California, helped him fill out that part of it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He He loves mountain wines, which is why the guy who found this property said, this is an opportunity because I know you love mountain wines, and I know the style that this property could potentially bring. So stylistically, he likes a little bit of that old world, that high tannin structure, that high acid, very food friendly wines. And I think that's been what we've been able to work with here on this estate for many, many years.
So your palate kind of grew up in a very early years, an early stage on European wine. And has that continued? I know you've been introduced to, fantastic amount of California wines and probably other New World wines. But what is your relationship like with the old wines?
I'd say it's actually opposite of what it started as. I would say I've certainly part and parcel for living in the Napa Valley is you taste a lot of great wines from friends who are winemakers or were in the industry, or just being around them, because it's you don't go to a dinner party or have a dinner party without being experiencing great wines. And in most cases, in a lot of cases, they are California wines, and they're young California wines. So and then being on the production side of things in this industry, you're used to drinking and experiencing and even peer tasting a lot of young California wines. So I'd say my palate is probably developed more towards the California Cab. And if I'm not drinking California Cab, I'm probably drinking Syrah, Grenache from Paso. I love that region. And if I'm not drinking reds, I'm like what's in front of us right now. I'm drinking a little Sauvignon Blanc.
2018.
Yes.
Correlation wine. Let's talk about this for a second. This is which vintage of this wine?
2018.
No, which vintage are you on from the inception? How many
second vintage. We started. 2017 was the first time we did it. And the second time in my career. I mean, I started my career in winemaking in 2002 when I had the opportunity to get a harvest position at Harlan Estate, and was asked to come on board to help in the cellar and drag hoses and sort of help with obviously the practices and needs of crush for both the Harlan Estate team and the Bond Estates team. And it was an amazing opportunity to sort of get in and cut my teeth and really come in green to the industry. And of course, there the focus is Bordeaux style reds, with the five varietals. So I spent 4 years there on that team before coming up to Vineyard 7 and 8 in sort of later part of 2006 to start or finish construction of our facility here, start putting our team together. And we grow here on the estate, we grow Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay. So for many years of my winemaking career, probably so for the first 14 of what's been 16 years, had been focused solely on, or mostly on Cabernet-based wines, a little bit of Chardonnay that we grow on the estate. So it was fun for me a couple of years ago to venture for the first time outside and have the opportunity to bring in some Sauvignon Blanc. So a new venture, if you will.
Well, it smells terrific. Very feminine, very floral, very sophisticated nose.
Thank you. It's the Musquet clone. It comes from a vineyard that we were happy to have access to up on the top of Atlas Peak. And we don't make a whole lot. We make just a few hundred cases of this. It's barrel fermented and sees neutral oak for about 6 months. And I think stylistically for all the wines that we make, whether it's the Cabs, whether it's the Chardonnay, whether it's the Sauvignon Blanc, or even the Rosé that we make for Correlation Wine Company, acid is so important to me. Freshness, that purity, that focus of those flavors. So high tone acid, texture is really important to me in these wines. So that barrel fermentation process in this wine, I think definitely helped.
I've always thought of your wines, and I've been very spoiled to have tasted them for many years. Just you have this European sensibility fused with California opulence. Somehow you managed to walk that very fine line.
It helps to be in an environment where Mother Nature sort of presses that upon you. I mean, as we're sitting here right now, 2,000 feet up on the top of Spring Mountain, due west of us about 30 miles is the coast.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that coastal influence. We get a lot of that, just being at elevation and climate-wise, we have, inherently an environment that brings higher acid to our wines. It brings a higher tannin structure to our reds. And then the process by which we, help sort of cultivate, the wines that we want from this property, and even the wines that we work with for Correlation Wine Company, or the grapes that we work with for Correlation Wine Company. We sort of help to bring that texture forward, and sort of how do we sort of bring all three of those components together into what we ultimately bottle.
You've always had a very defined point of view. You've always had the vision. You modified it and adapted it, but every conversation we've had over the years pointed to the fact that you had the idea in your mind that was very prominent of what you want to accomplish. Where did that come from?
That's a good question. I mean, I think, no question, experienced people I've met. Go back to even the beginning of my parents. My father was very, and is still, he still works, very successful in his career on Wall Street. And, obviously to be to accomplish what he has, takes a tremendous amount of discipline and hard work and effort. So just being around that, and the way that he also supported my brother, sister, and I into finding your own path. I think I was lucky that my parents never sort of pressed upon us an ideal career path that they thought was just for us. They wanted us to be happy. They wanted us to follow what we were passionate about. So thankfully, I realized pretty quickly after one summer internship at my father's company that I had sort of little interest to keep a tie on every day and crunch numbers. Even though minus the tie, there's part of that happens in the wine business as well.
It's that business pesky part.
Exactly. But at least we have wine to help support that.
Exactly.
So I think that, no question, that foundation of my parents supporting me and my brother and sister into doing what we do sort of started or paved the way. And then the experiences that I've been really lucky to have, and the people I've been lucky to meet and work with. So, you think of Harlan Estate and what Bill Harlan has created with his projects, from Harlan Estate Winery to the Bond Project to Promontory to Napa Valley Reserve, Meadowood. I mean, all of these being world-class operations that need a defined and focused vision. French Laundry. I mean, Thomas Keller has not swayed. I mean, he's been successful in opening other restaurants and the bakeries and other business ventures sort of around the country and around the world. But when it comes back to the French Laundry, he's never swayed from his vision on keeping something really small and focused and experience-driven. Highlighting the food, but highlighting the whole process. From the service to the relationship from the purveyors to how a carrot is supposed to taste like. It's not manipulated into something that the consumer or the diner isn't sure what it is. So, to me, being around people in businesses where the founders and the proprietors were and needed to be truly focused on their vision absolutely has helped.
So we'll come back to that experiential part of it, because it's really important. We'll just shelve it for a moment, because I wanted to highlight something for you guys. You said something very seminal very early in the conversation, which was you actually stayed true to yourself. You highlighted the importance of that trait, and clearly that comes from your family, from your upbringing. We're all from childhood, as I believe it's Saint-Exupéry once said in Little Prince. Never gets old.
Yeah.
And you developed it into this really extraordinary vision, and unique and delicious, I might add. But back in the beginning, first of all, those are big names. Bill Harlan, Thomas Keller. I mean, they're not the only great chefs and vintners by far, but in the context of Napa Valley, it probably doesn't get any better. I was kind of waiting for you to say that you were offered Wine Advocate internship as well, because the only thing that's missing in that description is media. Everything else you've covered. But it's not just big names. Those are the people that are true mentors.
Yeah.
In a larger sense.
For
And the
sure.
fact that you're able to absorb it. I mean, I don't think it's a weird coincidence that those are the people that wound up in your life path. And I'm sure you've absorbed like a sponge everything, and we learn by osmosis, not just
Sure.
directly. So that set you up mentally and perhaps even emotionally, philosophically. And there you were with this property that's, magical doesn't begin to cover it. You guys need to figure out a way how to get here. This is almost a religious experience. So it's beautiful, but you stepping into those shoes, I mean, you've had some great mentoring and training and hands-on, but how intimidating is that to start this brand?
Oh, extremely intimidating. And still is to this day. I mean, I think that, I sometimes, I think with anybody that has seen some success and some, and of course failures along the way, it's not, to a certain extent, being careful not to get overly satisfied with where you are. Obviously making sure to take time to enjoy the victories along the way. And, could I do better at that? Sure. But I think that the amount of work that goes into creating something and maintaining something special, and truly, for me and for what we're trying to do at Vineyard 7 and 8 and Correlation Wine Company, is creating brands that are, like Bill Harlan and Thomas Keller, that are theirs, that they're part of their family. And so to maintain that sort of that family integrity and that vision, and obviously wanting to please, obviously yourself, never forget to please yourself, but make sure your family's happy with what's going on. Make sure, your friends, your clients, it's never ending. You can't stop trying to improve and trying to continue to deliver, especially in the changing atmosphere that is, the wine world right now, as consumers are presented with better and better wines every day. It's great, from the consumer side standpoint, it's great for all of us. And for those that like to drink wine, there's never been a better selection of wines out there available to us. But also on the brand standpoint, it's never been more difficult to sort of keep customers' attention, and regardless of the quality that's in that bottle. So
how do you address that? How do you actually stay
Oh,
in
my
people's
goodness.
minds?
um,
I was going to get to that later, but you walked into it.
the $1 million trillion question. I think to a certain extent, again, it goes back to what you said earlier about that vision. I think you've got to stay true to what your vision is and trust your vision, because if you sway from it, and not to say that your vision doesn't transform or grow or adjust, but as long as you're staying in the sort of the original direction, it's important to, I guess, if you're not staying true to it, you're changing your identity. And so maintaining your identity, trusting your identity of what the brand is, trusting that there's a market for that identity and that vision out there. You're not marketing to the entire world. You're marketing to people that trust and believe in the story that you're telling. So finding those people that enjoy that story, and continuing to tell a new version of it every year. And then, how do we do that? We're here at Vineyard 7 8. We're extremely lucky to have a facility that allows us the opportunity to welcome guests for private tastings. And, there's a small enough team here on the property that, you're with a principal. It's you're getting an intimate experience that allows us to tell that story, over and over, but on a personal level. It's never, if it's just, let's say it's one couple and they're coming out from the East Coast and they want to come for a tasting, and we have a reservation for them. Just because it's 2 people and we have space for more, we're not going to welcome more people, because we want that couple to have their own experience. So, trying to create a hospitality program up here that is really quaint and personal and private, never having to say hello and goodbye at the same time, because that awkwardness of, here you've spent a couple hours with a guest and really bringing them into your story, but how do you then end that experience by saying, oh, that's too bad, somebody else is coming in and we've got to rush you out of here, and we didn't also have the proper time to welcome this next group. So that's something that we've stayed true, and I think that is something that helps us maintain our message, maintain our sort of consistency and presentation to our wines to our guests. Certainly the adage of media, and social media. I mean, we've been trying very hard to understand what platform is best for us, and to me, just like the place that we're at and the beauty that this place and wines and experiences through our wines bring, photography is really important to us. So for us, Instagram has been an important way for us to sort of have a daily dose of what our story and what life is like on the mountain.
So you guys just got a pretty neat lesson in branding, arguably digital media even. I don't know if you wanted it. I know that I'm eating it up because, it sounds remote for those of you not directly involved, but in this business it's absolutely crucial, and you're clearly very thoughtful about it, and that's wonderful to hear.
Thank you.
And as far as kind of the bigger picture is concerned, it's really, to me, important to realize that being a vineyard owner really makes you wear so many hats.
Sure.
You just mentioned 7 jobs in those few sentences. And the fact that you're able to maintain some sort of equilibrium, because you're smiling, and I know how much work
it is.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think as you think of any small business, sort of as an entrepreneur, you're sort of built to wear many hats. There's no job that's too small. There's no job that's too big. When you first got here, I was sort of pulling my hair out a little bit, and you said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Well, our email's been down all day," and so I'm putting my IT hat on, trying to fix our email server. And earlier this morning, it's out in the vineyard with my vineyard crew, and but that's also the excitement, is that there's never, at least for me, there's never the opportunity to get stagnant in what we're doing. It's sort of ever evolving, ever changing, and the seasons keep changing that. The tasks that are needed on a daily basis, and whatever is the priority for the moment, also dictates that.
Yeah, and again, I just want to highlight some of the important messages here. So Katy Perry sang recently at Auction Napa Valley, and she has a song. Hope I don't screw up the lyrics. Don't judge me too hard if I do. But if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. And you spoke so well about that just a moment ago, that you have to stay true to who you are. There's different framework, different iterations as the business and the industry moves forward. But it doesn't mean that at the core, you're not true to that.
Sure.
And to that effect, again, going back to your early days, you traveled a ton, I'm sure, and I have a bit as well. And the notion of Napa Valley, as perceived by the world, there's always a bit of reference, sometimes jealousy, but let's talk about the good parts.
The conclusion of this interview can be found in the next podcast, already available for your download. Thanks again for tuning in to the official podcast of Palate Exposure, featuring Ilona Thompson.